by fans, for fans, the Hog Style. And now, here's your host, Sean Conti.
Welcome back to the Hog Style. It's the pregame show. My name's Sean Conti, and I'm here with the usual suspects. That is Steve Thomas, Alex Zeese, and Jamal Forrest. We are here from TicketClub.com. Actually, we're not from TicketClub.com, but they're here representing us. We got the New Orleans Saints coming up at the Mercedes-Benz Superdome on Monday. So, before we jump into that, did any of you guys actually end up doing anything exciting for the bye week? You guys were pretty boring when I asked.
I mean, I watched a lot of football. I told you I was going to have an exciting weekend, didn't I?
Yeah, I think you just literally said it's going to be spectacular.
Yeah, it was spectacular. I sat around the house. I watched football. And that's about it.
Beautiful. Oh, actually, you know what? That does sound familiar, and it still sounds like a good plan.
Yeah, I mean, that's. I think Alex, was that your plan too? Because I mean,
I got a haircut in there and went to We the Pizza because anytime I go to my haircut place, which is right by We the Pizza, I then get We the Pizza after my haircut. So, you know.
Yeah, I got pizza as well, but it was frozen, so I just heated it. I heated it up and enjoyed it. Put some hot sauce on it. Can't never go wrong.
Hot sauce solves everything with bad frozen pizza.
Yes, absolutely. I didn't trust it. I mean, it was only tomatoes on the pizza, like diced tomatoes. So I was like, let me put some peppers on it, some crushed red pepper, and then put some hot sauce on it. I'll be all right. It was amazing.
That's horrifying.
Look,
I knew Steve was going to say that. I saw the expression as Jamal was talking.
Let me tell y'all something. Whenever you get some pizza that you don't trust, you're not sure if it's going to be good or not, it will automatically turn great if you just put some hot sauce on it.
I've done it, Jamal, and I agree.
Thank you.
You're talking to someone who has wiped table pepper off of an ear of corn with a napkin, okay? Because it's too hot for me. I cannot eat table pepper. It's too hot for me.
He asks the person at the deli for something less strong than white bread. I've heard him do. It's like, this is a little too potent. Can you just...
It's too flavorful, the white bread.
Yeah, nice. Steve, let me tell you something. You're missing out. I'll leave it at that.
You know what also goes good with bad pizza, Jamal, and hot sauce? A PBR. Shitty beer like that.
Oh, man. A beer. I wish I had a beer, to be honest with you. I didn't even go to the bar. I had Hennessy. I had to hold that off until the night game, the primetime game. Couldn't drink that much during the day.
Well,
that's too hard. That's too heavy for
I know.
me
That's why I was
with
like,
work the next day.
I couldn't drink it with the pizza.
That is quite a mismatch of foods there. I like it, though. It's
Am I the only one that eats white bread and drinks Sunkist?
Yes.
I mean, is that
on Earth. Yes. You are the only one.
Yes. Steve, we've been over this.
I like wheat bread,
just
actually, truth be told. That's even more bland.
Color me surprised. All right, well, on that note, let's get to the Saints, because this is actually going to be pretty interesting. I don't know about you guys, but it seems to me like in each other, these two teams are facing their first real test of the season. So, Steve, do we have any injuries or anything to go over to? I guess we're
recording on Wednesday, and so the Redskins don't have to release the injury report until Thursday because it's the Monday night game. Jay was asked about it at the Wednesday presser, and he specifically declined to answer, saying he didn't have to give up details.
I don't have to tell you, so ha 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 ha.
The only thing we know of note is that Josh Doctson was mysteriously absent from practice on Wednesday. Beyond that, no idea.
And people felt the difference. I'm told.
They probably did.
They had all these conspiracy theories online. You know how fans get when they start worrying about something. No show, no explanation about it. Seems like the head coach is covering it up, which he really isn't. He's just saying that he has no reason to explain it. People are thinking that he's about to get traded.
The man might have had to run errands or something. It could be nothing.
He probably had to go run some errands, get some coffee and donuts for the coaches. Who knows?
Has to do whatever he can to get himself on the field more, because that's what it is.
He's on the field more. It's just not doing anything when he's on the field.
Yeah.
It's not a question of getting on the field.
So more so having the quarterback throw more.
Sure.
There you go.
Right, exactly. Well, it's interesting that you guys would say that, because I will say this was probably one of his better games ever last year, was against the Saints. But maybe before we get to that, we can start with the Saints' high-octane offense. I don't know how you guys feel about that, but I feel like them against our defense is going to be a pretty big story.
Yeah, I think that is. I think I agree with you. I think that's going to be the story. Drew Brees, Hall of Famer. Anytime you got a Hall of Fame quarterback you're going against, that's the story of the day, right?
It pops out of the page of me. I mean, I don't know if you guys have seen these point totals, but it's been quite an offense through the first couple weeks of this season. I mean,
the NFC South is like the Big 12 in college football right now. It's just all offense.
For real. It's been like that for years. Yeah, I mean, listen. I mean, first of all, the Saints have been doing this for years. This is not new to 2018. And yes, they've scored over 40 points twice and over 30 points once. Weirdly, only the Cleveland Browns held them to a reasonable point total. I mean, how on earth did that happen? If you've been reading our columns this week, you'll know that the big news is that Brees is going to break the all-time yardage record, passing yardage record.
Inevitable.
That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, he's only got 200 yards to go, and so that's probably also why this game is on Monday Night Football, would be my guess.
Right.
But let's just start with Drew Brees, because he's having another Drew Brees-like year. Almost 76% completion percentage, 8 touchdowns, no interceptions. That's just insane. He's already passed for almost 1,300 yards. Just crazy how effective this guy is in his 18th season.
Yeah.
Sorry, 18th season. Crazy. Yeah. There's basically 4...
Barely taking sacks.
Yeah,
too.
barely taking sacks. For this year, at least, Mark Ingram has been out. He's back now this week. He was out with his PED suspension. But so far, there's basically been 4 guys that Brees uses. Alvin Kamara, Ted Ginn Jr., Michael Thomas, and to a lesser extent, Ben Watson. And he does spread the ball out to other guys, but those are his 4 main targets to focus on. And certainly, I think Kamara is probably the most dangerous out of those guys.
Yeah, he's looking like Chris Thompson was early last year, this year, just doing it on the ground and in the air, ridiculously so.
Yeah,
it's a great call out, especially because, well, like you just said, Alex, they've used them in multiple ways. It's not just the amount of tools they have, but it's the fact that both Ingram and Kamara are legitimate receiving threats, which they'll definitely use to their advantage, as well as you mentioned Ginn and Thomas. I mean, Thomas almost goes without being said. I think he's pretty close to the tops of the league right now.
Yeah.
In terms of total yards,
I have all that. We'll get to that.
But yeah, I mean, as far as Brees says, all I'm saying is, you guys are right. He's got so many freaking weapons. It's going to be a real test of our top.
Well, I mean, defense. I think a big part of this is that Brees creates these guys.
Yeah.
I think if you put some of these guys that have played with Brees over the years on other teams, they wouldn't have had the success that they have. I think Drew Brees is just that good. And what's unique, what everybody needs to remember about the Saints offense is that this is not a one-dimensional thing. Sean Payton is a very good coach. The scheme is complicated. It can change as the needs go by. He'll play a half just going short passes only, and then he'll air it out in the second half.
I mean, but make no mistake, he loves to air it out.
He does.
He loves to go vertical.
And one of the things that goes well with Brees and Peyton in general, their relationship is just as a quarterback, Brees takes chances. He gives his top guys chances to make plays on the ball. Last year, a lot. Matter of fact, it was a Bills game that I just happened to look at, and he does it this year too. But just the one that I had time to look at and sit down and watch the whole game through. What he does a lot of 50-50 chances, 50-50 balls for his top guys, Michael Thomas. If you ever get the opportunity in a one-on-one situation, he'll take that chance with you. He trusts his guys. And the same thing for Brandon Coleman. I'm not even sure, to be honest with you, what Brandon Coleman looks like this year, or even if he's still on the team, to be honest with you. No. I'm about to say, I'm not even sure if he's on the team anymore. But these receivers that he has, regardless of who you are, and that was where I was headed, it doesn't matter. But if you get the one-on-one option, if it looks good and favorable, he's quick enough to process that, and he gives you that chance. And this is something that's not going to change on Monday night. He'll have that opportunity where he'll see some one-on-one chances with our guys. Our cornerbacks will get tested. And the question is, will they be able to step up to the occasion? Because last year, for the most part, they did well. The second half, even in the second half, actually, it was the fourth quarter. It was literally the last quarter in which everything went downhill for this team in general. So, yes, and the real test is, will they be able to withstand Drew Brees and the opportunities that he gives his receivers? They'll definitely have opportunities to make plays on the ball, but it will come down to the secondary and the interior pass rush. Get Drew Brees off the mark, because he'll definitely be able to tear you up inside the pocket. So That's really what it comes down to, and I do like our chances in terms of checking or keeping Drew Brees in check. I like our chances, not necessarily under 201 yards or whatever, but
Well, yeah, I don't care about the record. I mean, that's not on the Redskins. Yeah. That's a Drew Brees accomplishment.
Yeah.
It's just interesting that's happening against us. I think Drew Brees, aside from maybe Tom Brady, of the active quarterbacks, I think Drew Brees can read the field better and quicker than anybody. Yeah. I think he may be number one in that. Maybe even better than Brady. In terms of Michael Thomas, the receiver, right now, by some measures, he's the top receiver in football. 44 targets, 42 receptions, which is just an insane catch rate.
Yeah, and you're saying 10 catches a game there too, basically.
Yeah, right. Yeah, and the 42 receptions, first in the NFL. He's fourth in yardage, despite being the ex-possession receiver. Fourth in yardage, 455 yards. He's having an incredible year, and I just can't believe that any receiver's caught that many balls. In terms of Alvin Kamara, Kamara's only rushed for 275 yards, and I think, Sean, you pointed this out at some point. He's really only had one massive game on the ground, Kamara.
Yeah.
And that was against the Giants.
I did that in our comment section. Shout out to our website.
Yeah.
Get lots of little goodies in there.
I knew you said it somewhere. I can't remember where it was. But Kamara, on the other hand, though, he's really Chris Thompson.
Yeah.
He's the Saints version of Chris Thompson. And in terms of receptions, he's got 35 receptions, 336 yards. He runs a lot of screens, a lot of bubble screens, a lot of passes out to the flats. That is Kamara.
So he's almost at 600 yards then, right?
I mean, Chris Thompson, no.
What's that?
Yeah, I think so too, Jamal.
I was just saying, he's already almost at 600 yards, and we're only 4 games in the season, which is ridiculous for any player.
Yeah, from scrimmage. Yeah, I mean, he's over 600 yards from scrimmage. Just crazy. Now, what everybody needs to remember, though, again, is Mark Ingram's back. And Mark Ingram and Alvin Kamara are sort of Mr. Inside and Mr. Outside.
Right.
And so, I don't know how, I don't want to kind of shape Ingram's in, whether he's ready to go. He'd be a fool if he's not ready, and I don't think he is a fool. So you have to assume he's going to be the starting running back and go back to getting his...
If he's anything like what we saw in Week 11 last year, it's going to be a problem. If he's anything running to that quality.
There's one thing I've been noticing when I was watching some of the, I tried to watch as much of the 30-minute, short games before every show. Are they using their quarterback as like a fullback, tight end thing?
Well, no,
Let me
fullback.
tell you
He's
about
a running back. Running back, tight end, kick returner.
Yeah.
This is Taysom Hill, who was with BYU, and he was with the Green Bay Packers last year. They are using him as a read option quarterback to start with. He will come in the game as the quarterback. Drew Brees goes to the bench. When that happens, it's almost guaranteed to be a Robert Griffin style read option, almost every single time.
Yeah.
And so it's Kamara and Hill, and they run the read option. They line him up at the H-back.
Right.
They line him up at fullback. He returns punts. He is an all-purpose weapon. I don't think Sean Payton is kind of setting up this read option thing to have him do something crazy, later. Because why on earth did you have anybody but Drew Brees pass the ball?
Right.
Taysom has thrown it. He started a few times.
Yeah, he's had two. I know he's had 2 attempts this year. But I just can't believe. Yeah, I just can't believe that on any sort of regular basis they're going to have him pass the ball.
No, but it's just a wild little wrinkle that Peyton's throwing in there, and to even put him in with Brees at the same time, that just can create all sorts of havoc for your defensive coordinator to see 2 quarterbacks on the field.
Yeah.
I just see him running the read option. When he's in lining up under center, more often than not, it's a read option.
Sure.
Yeah, but at the same time, that's what they want. That's what they want a lot of people to think, because he is that running quarterback. He is the guy he has great vision. It's the reason why they put him at kick return. Like he can do those things. I just think that at the same time, this is a guy. Again, we already said he's an all-purpose weapon, but he's so versatile. He's not the greatest quarterback, but he's I wouldn't want to say great because we don't know him that well, but he's a very good athlete. He can do a lot of things well, which also means committed to the run when you see him in there. It's also something that you don't want to do because he has the ability to throw it. And that's what Sean Payton wants people to think is that he is going in there. He's likely doing like 90%. He's doing one thing. I mean, yes, but that 10% should still be accounted for. And that's a lot of times, a lot of people, I mean, he only done it twice. You said he only had 2 attempts. The one I saw in New York, I mean, shoot, it was wide open. However, Alvin Kamara couldn't catch it. So it's just things that people have to prepare for. And I think that the Redskins is vulnerable to these type of wrinkles in the offense. And they have to be very prepared for a guy like him because he can have a start. He can have a huge game Monday night. To be honest with you.
I mean, look, it's just he'll be in there for 3 plays or something, but we got to account for it.
He reminds me of Tim Tebow. You know, not in terms of Tebow's hoity-toity attitude, but just the way that he plays and the way he's used. He's kind of a smaller 2018 version of Tim Tebow.
Right? Maybe how Tim Tebow should have been used from the get-go.
Yeah, perhaps. I mean, but let's not make too much out of Taysom Hill.
No. I just think it's interesting to keep make a note of it.
Here's what stuck.
Here's
what jumped out of the page at me. If you look at the numbers, which aren't published yet, but I have in front of me in our game preview, 3rd in points, 4th in yards, 7th in passing yards. Okay, great. But look at their 3rd down conversions. 20th for 3rd down conversions.
Really?
That tells me they're making a lot of big plays. Because and they're okay in the red zone. They're 10th in the red zone, which is good, but that's less effective than you would think given the massive amount of points they put up and the massive amount of yards that they've put up. So I think that tells me that they've made a lot of big plays. Alvin Kamara put one up against the Giants, and that's not the first time.
I believe they're the only team so far this year to have I think it's 45-plus yard play in every game so far. So that would lend exactly to your point.
So how do we defend the New Orleans Saints? That's what the audience wants to know.
Yeah, I mean, I think we were kind of I was, again, another shout-out to our website. I was having this discussion with some other folks in the comments section, and the question was about blitzing. It's how much do you bring the pressure against Brees? And it's actually kind of interesting. Go back and look at that game last year. We actually pressured him a lot, and it didn't ultimately make that much of a difference. Now, I guess maybe he was pressured and it wasn't quite hitting home, so that was part of the problem, obviously. But pressure in and of itself didn't necessarily do it. So I think it's a legitimate question. I don't know. It seems like a guy that's going to really pick apart a soft zone coverage. So I think you've got to man up, and you do have to send some pressure, but and then just be wary of the wrinkles. So easier said than done.
So I'd say, is it pressure or sending blitzes? Reason being is because the Redskins this year haven't sent many blitzes, and I don't have the stats right now to back it up, but just looking from my memory bank. The Redskins have been having a lot of trust in their defensive line and their pass rushers in general. And alone already we have 6 sacks amongst the defensive line. And that's just something that you haven't had to start a season in a long time. It's always been the edge rushers throughout the season who's been getting the majority of the sacks. So with that being said, given the opportunity to the Redskins front early on to show that they're capable of doing that without having you sending pressure, is something that's worth looking into initially, and I think that is what starts the ball, gets the ball rolling. Is having pressure on your defensive line, having them get home, and also stopping the run, which is something that's obviously for very obvious reasons why you need to get it done. So.
Well, and the one thing I'll say about even if pressure doesn't get home, it is the thing that can force Brees to throw that ball earlier than he wants to. Even so that does help with the big play thing because he's not going for 15 yards, he's going for 5. So there is that factor to bring pressure to.
Well, that's a great call out, and I would just say that Ingram is like one of the best probably dump off.
Right, you got to cover him tight. You got to put
really
Brown or somebody on him like glue.
Yeah,
I mean,
absolutely. And Oh, so sorry, Steve. I was just going to say to that point, there is a poll that was done over on a Saints website. Let's see, I have it up here somewhere. I think it was like Canal Street Chronicles or something like that. But anyway, to your point, Alex, they took a poll of the biggest test for the Saints, and it was the one that was voted on was it's the Saints running backs against Mason Foster and Zach Brown. So I think it kind of speaks to that.
Yeah.
Their ability to get lateral move and get those guys on the sidelines, it's going to be huge.
My 2 cents into this is I think this is not the week to run a bunch of exotic zone blitzes. I don't think you want to blitz safeties, blitz the middle linebackers. I think the linebackers need to stay home. And I think you try to get as much pressure as you can with the front 4.
Yeah.
Or the front 3, depending on the formation they're in.
Maybe front 5.
I don't think you can give. I don't think you can give. No, I'm not saying the front 5. I'm saying the interior defensive line. And to the extent then that we're playing a 4-3, fine. But I think you got to keep the linebackers home and keep them into coverage because Drew Brees is way too good to play a soft zone. Way too good to play.
Yeah,
a soft zone.
I agree with you there. You can't have Norman and Dunbar 10 yards off.
No, and you got to have the linebacker. Drew Brees will kill you. Mm-hmm. Will absolutely kill you on short crossers.
Yeah.
And things and plays like that. And so I think you got to have the backers in coverage by and large. So I think this is a week where you've got the defensive front 3, the meaning John Allen, Deron Payne, Matt Ioannidis have got to do their thing one more week and put pressure on them. And Ryan Kerrigan, I mean, buddy, you got to show up.
Yeah.
I know. I mean, I know Mark, our buddy Mark Bullock. Did a piece, I don't know, was it last week?
I think 2 weeks ago.
Yeah, showing that he's made some impact. But listen, I mean, you're the All-Pro. You're the Pro Bowler, rather. You're our sack guy. You have got to produce. And you have got to start getting home. Because, Redskins fans make a lot of excuses for this guy. But the bottom line is he's just not getting to the quarterback.
Yeah.
Sorry, it's true. Yeah, he's made some impacts here and there, but he's not getting the quarterback. And this is a week... I don't think you want Ryan Kerrigan out in coverage. I don't think you want, I'm not counting on him to seal the edge on the run because he's not that good at that. You have got to get home.
Yeah.
You have to get home.
I don't want to see Kerrigan on Ingram or anybody. Like you want to see him still trying to get to Brees most of this game, I think.
Yeah. And also, I mean, I'll just piggyback. Well, I'd agree with that, but I'd also add that one of the things that we have going for us is that this is not the same defensive line that we had going into the game last year. We're in full health. We have Ioannidis and we have Allen at the same time. We also have an addition in Deron Payne, and I mean I guess it's an addition in Jonathan Allen as well because he wasn't there last year. So you're facing.
Oh yeah.
So for this game specifically, you have a new addition, and it's something that it's a new wrinkle for our defense, as well as a wrinkle that they have for the Saints offense. So the defensive line is just something that is a real strength this year, in my opinion. But at the same time, they get a real test this week, and what everybody's saying is true. The front 7 has to do their job effectively, but more so the interior defensive line has to do their job. And if they're able to do their job, it'll definitely lighten the load for the secondary. So we'll see how it goes.
There you go. I like it. Let's switch over to the other side of the ball. And honestly, it's kind of fitting that we all went over on the offense because Saints defense is a whole lot of nothing, if you ask me. But I guess we got to get into it. So, it's a different offense for the Redskins, but not a hugely different defense for the Saints in terms of last year's matchup to this year's. Should be a return to good form for Skins' offense. What are the big headlines?
Well, let's start. I mean, we ended on the line last time. Let's start with the line here on the Saints' defense because I think that's probably their strongest, group, led by Cam Jordan. There, if you go and you watch how they played,
he's a top 5 guy.
Falcons, Giants, they're able to get pressure pretty well from time to time, and they force you out of your pocket a bit. Nothing that really scares you, but just enough where that would be the place I would be the most worried if I were the Redskins, is that defensive line of theirs.
I mean,
Well, and you called out the guy, too. That's the guy right there,
Cam Jordan. I mean, but listen, this defense has gotten in three of 4 games have been shootouts.
Right.
They've not stopped anybody. Weirdly enough, the only game, again, that wasn't a shootout was the Browns. I mean, I guess that makes sense from a defensive standpoint. But, they're 29th in points, 29th in yards per play, 32nd in passing yards. But the one thing they've done well, oddly enough, they are number 1 in the league in rushing yards per attempt. Number 1. They've only given up 3.2 yards per attempt rushing, and there have been 98 rushing attempts against them, which is kind of middle of the pack. It's 18th, so it's not like teams haven't rushed on them against them at all. But for some weird reason, they have been outstanding against the rush. Just atrocious against the pass. Just god awful, terrible against the pass. Yeah, I think this is the week, if you ask me, that if you want to see our outside receivers get involved, this is the week to do it.
Yeah, well,
I think their secondary is weak. I'm not impressed with their corners necessarily. They don't get a ton of pass rush. They don't get a lot of interceptions. I think if you really want to see whether Josh Doxson can do it, this is the week he can get open, get space, and get some balls.
Well, so there's kind of a catch to that where we're probably the weakest receiving core they've faced at this point.
Probably.
So, I mean, it might be better to say this is the week that we can really test and see, is our receiving core have anybody at this point? Because all right, so they played who? The Giants. The Giants have good receivers.
Giants, Browns.
Falcons have good receivers.
Tampa Bay. Deshaun Jackson.
Yeah, Tampa has at least Deshaun Jackson, who I think got 500 yards in that one game or something like that. It was ridiculous.
Yeah, something like that. Yeah, 2 of their receivers went
so
crazy.
I mean, this is that those could be skewing the stats a little bit, but hopefully you're right, and maybe we see Paul Richardson or Doxson do something.
I mean, listen, we've got Michael Floyd, in the story.
Right.
Boom.
He's been talking a lot for a guy who's wandering onto the team.
Well, that's crazy. I haven't even
Wandering
heard
on the team.
Where is he?
I saw like 2 or 3 stories where he's like, "I'm going to be great." It's like,
I want to look at that.
I'm glad he has confidence.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. I'm glad he got that. I want to see what he's talking about.
Somebody has to believe in him.
Right. Let's talk running game though here real fast.
Sure.
Let's not just babble. Now, Adrian Peterson had
Ryan had a huge game.
He had
last
130
year. Story
had
over.
137 yards against him last year. Adrian Peterson had a sprained ankle when last we saw him against the Packers.
Right.
At the very end of the and so we haven't got an injury report. We don't know how hard he is. We don't know if Peterson is 100%, 0%, or what. Don't know. The team did sign Mac Brown, and you would not believe.
Yeah, I saw you saying something about this.
I was just flabbergasted. I put an innocent tweet out, like I always do. Roster move. Redskins signed Mac Brown to the practice squad. That got an unbelievable amount of responses. I just couldn't believe it. You guys out there are just, some of you guys, I don't know if you're related to Mac Brown, if he owes you money, maybe.
You're saying excitement about this signing.
Yeah,
Steve.
he is the most popular practice squad player in the history of the franchise.
Well, I mean, he's got that preseason, superstar thing going for him still.
Yeah, I guess, man.
He's still riding the high of that preseason, man. Take that all the way.
But anyway, in terms of Mac Brown is on the practice squad, he's not going to play.
Right.
In terms of running, we have to hope and pray that Adrian Peterson is healthy. But if this season is any guide, this may not be, a 120-yard day for him.
Right.
If the Saints defense holds for him at least.
Yeah, I think you're exactly right. I think looking at that game last year, I mean, to the point you made that there might be slightly better in protecting against those inside runs, it did seem like a lot of the big gains last year were out on the edges around the side. I mean, I don't see any reason why we can't do that again. I understand that there may be a little better up front, but there's nothing really that's got me shaking about this defense. Now, that said, that's typically what I say when horrible things happen.
But I don't think, I don't think the way to play the Saints is to get in a shootout with them. I think you're going to lose, if you get in a shootout with the Saints. The way to play the New Orleans Saints, to me, is the key to it is the tempo. You have to control the tempo of the game. You cannot turn this into a run up and down the field over and over and over again and give them like 12 possessions. and give Drew an entirely open field.
Yeah.
I think you control the tempo. You do as many long, grinded out drives as you can. Slow the pace down, because playing the Saints, it's like playing the Golden State Warriors. When you play the Warriors, you don't play their game, because you will lose. And this is the truth. This is true with the Saints. You just can't play the way they play and win on any kind of consistent basis. So I think you have to let them play. Make them play Redskins football, and what Redskins football has been this year is running.
Right.
We've run the ball a ton. We run the ball more than almost anybody. Raw numbers are skewed up because we had the bye week, but we run the ball almost more than anybody, and we are number one in average time of possession. That is how to beat the Saints in terms of how to develop a game plan. To me.
Yeah, no, I like that. I think time of possession is actually a big thing that we didn't really say directly, but running the game leads to that. I think a key to it is, obviously you got to limit the big quick scores that they're going to try to get, but you also got to eat up time, and you got to come away with points. To that point, it took them. Actually, this was week 1 that I have this note for, so it's almost not worth mentioning. But hey, it took them until 7 minutes and 42 seconds in the third quarter to get a third down stop in week 1. So you can march down the field on these guys and eat up time. It can be done.
Here's one of the things. It's actually 2 things. But one of the things that I want to talk about is more so you don't. And I agree with making sure that they are limited in their opportunities to get the ball. But at the same time, I wouldn't hesitate to be aggressive the same way in which you've seen the Redskins be aggressive against the Packers week 3. And the reason being is you don't want to take your time putting up points against a team. You want to score as much as you can when you can. And whether that's field goals, whether those are touchdowns, don't hesitate to be aggressive on a defense that clearly struggles to put up to stop offenses. The thing is, when your offense scores, that does feed your defense, and that does excite your defense. It gives them motivation to get the ball back and make you want to score again, or they want you to score again. If you get what I'm saying, so you're putting up points. You're getting your defense back on the field. Yeah, you may think that they're getting tired, but no, these type of things that feeds into their own head. It makes them want to go out there and play and perform better and keep performing at a top level. So if they're able to execute each possession, they may give up a field goal or a touchdown here and there, but if majority of their drives ends up in 3 and outs than anything else, you have a good opportunity to put up 28 and still win by 17, not 17, but 11, maybe 14 points. So you have a good opportunity to put up points, but at the same time, don't be hesitant or more so ball control. Just make sure that you're aggressive in your approach. You're not scared to put up points with Drew Brees, but you want to put up points as quick as possible and get an early lead as quick as possible. And you've seen what we've been able to do with an early lead. If you can do that, you can put pressure on the quarterback.
I think the wild.
Yeah, that's a great point.
The wild card here is Mark Ingram, because we haven't seen what the Saints are going to do with him this year. The Saints are going to look at our defense, and see that they've given up 4.5 yards a carry. It's maybe Peyton goes to more of a ball control offense this week. I don't know. We'll see when. I guess we'll see on Monday night. But I don't necessarily. I think because Mark Ingram is such a wild card, I don't know if we necessarily have seen what the Saints' offense is going to be Monday.
Mm-hmm.
That's true.
Because of that.
That's true. That's true. Another thing I'd like to add too for our offense is making sure that we're able to establish a ground game and not stray away from it. Simply being because of the fact that we've seen one game in which they completely shut down, and they had the offensive line had a bad game, and so did the running backs themselves. They had a bad game. The Colts game just wasn't good. That was one game that you should be worried about. At the same time, you see the Saints that's coming in here with the number 1 rush defense in terms of yards per attempt. It's just something that you have to establish immediately, but also make sure that you get your Hall of Fame running back going early and often, and he can develop some type of momentum and rhythm. So it's just something that is very important, establishing the ground game for us as well.
Yeah, beautiful. What else do we want to say? Any closing remarks we have about Saints Redskins as we come into this Monday night game? God, it feels like it's still a really long way away.
It is a long way away.
Yeah.
So far
Monday
away.
Night games, man. It was like the longest wait.
On defense, I didn't mention Demario Davis. I think he's one to watch out for. I think he's a quality linebacker. I liked him in the offseason. There's that. In terms of wild cards with the Saints, Ted Ginn, to me, maybe the wild card that we haven't talked about much in terms of their offensive weapons.
He just will get lost. He gets lost in the noise of their
Yeah,
offense.
he does.
I feel like you forget he's there.
This is Ted Ginn is one of these tiny, speedy guys. He's not tiny, but by NFL receiver standards, he's not tall.
No.
Michael Thomas is a guy who's big, 6'3".
Right, Ted Ginn's like 5'11" or something, right?
Yeah, right, and running a sub 4.40. In terms of that, I think Ted Ginn may be the wild card. I think this is a game that is tailor made for Josh Norman to do well. This is a game where you need him to do well. Michael Thomas is a guy who is kind of up his alley. He's not a burner. And Josh does better when he's not facing little Antonio Brown burner types. So I know the fans been all over Josh Norman this week. Mm-hmm. He does need to play better.
All season.
He needs to play better. I mean, what can you say? But I think this is the week where, if he can take away Michael Thomas as a weapon for a good bit of the game, I think that's success. I don't think, like Alex, I know you pointed out that he hadn't had an interception, 600 days or whatever.
640-something days, yeah.
Okay, yeah. I don't really care about that particularly. I mean, I hope he gets intercepted.
Maybe not this week, but that's a while.
I don't think that's a measure of a cornerback's success, though. When you're talking about a number one corner, I mean, the measure of success to me is whether he can take a half of the side of the field away. And if he gets interceptions, great. To me, that's great.
But he's not really doing either thing right now.
He needs to play better. And what I'm saying is, going against a guy like Michael Thomas, I think, is better suited to his talents than some of these other guys. So let's hope. Yeah,
Josh Thomas isn't a speedy deep threat, which is what kills him.
So as long as he's a playmaker, he makes three to five plays on Monday night, and he makes a few plays consistently throughout the season. That's something that's worth that at least salvages the look of Josh Norman. Because I agree with Alex, honestly. You don't have to have interceptions to show that you're worth the money or that you're a solid cornerback, but at the same time, being able to force turnovers is something that's very critical, especially for this team and in the contract that they're paying Norman and the player that they're expecting him to be. So I think he does have to do a little bit more in terms of forcing turnovers, being a part of them.
Well, there you go. I mean, I think that leads into the big theme of this game, which is that this is the first true test. The jury's still out in a lot of ways, in a lot of aspects of this team, and this is probably going to clarify some things. It's such a shame to have an early bye, but at least we're coming into it. We're going to get a real litmus test for what kind of team we are. All right, so we will leave it there unless there's any straggling thoughts, but otherwise...
Prediction?
Oh, yeah, predictions. Okay, let's do it. I forgot, so I guess I can be the asshole that has to go first. Predictions. Steve doesn't want to see a shootout, but there's something in my heart that tells me we're probably going to see something like that, at least in terms of scores.
I just said the Redskins shouldn't get into a shootout. I didn't say it wouldn't become one.
You didn't say, you didn't say they won't. Okay, true. I'm going to go with, I'm going to say Skins win, because I really do think we match up well. And, oh God, I hope I don't look like an idiot. I'm going to say 31-24.
Wow.
Redskins.
Sean, you can't. After all this time, now you're worried about looking like an idiot. After we've done hundreds of these shows and said all kinds of dumb things for hundreds and thousands of hours on the air.
The jury's out on the team, but not on me. You're right. I'm an established idiot.
Some dumb person out there is probably collecting a library of dumb things we said. And it's gonna
they're the commenters on our blog.
I don't care about them.
Yes.
Screw them. In terms of. But please read our site. In terms of this game, I hate to be the negative, but listen, I mean, it's Monday Night Football in New Orleans. It's, Drew Brees Day in New Orleans. They're going to be really, really, really hyped. for this game to perform well. The Redskins historically do terrible on Monday Night Football. I can't remember the number. We're 2-something on Monday Night Football.
It's like 2-15 or something. Yeah,
I believe that's at home.
Something outrageous like that. So I think the Redskins will probably perform fairly well. I'm going to hope, but I think at the end of the day, Brees and the Saints are going to squeak this one out. I think they're going to go over 30 again. I think it's going to be something akin to 34-24 Saints.
I'll go.
Fair enough.
I think the Redskins, no drama from me. I think they sneak it out today. I said today. I'm sorry. They sneak it out on Monday. Probably a 1 point. I mean a one score possession. One score lead. So I'd say probably I was right around Sean's prediction 31-24, but I guess I'll just go 34-27, something like that.
All right.
Nice. I feel less stupid whenever Jamal's prediction is close to mine.
I got some confidence in these boys, so I think we all won.
I'm kind of leaning with Steve. I think the whole Monday night curse thing for the Redskins still lingers. I'd love to see it broken, but I think this is going to get into a shootout, and I think that it'll be closer, though. I'm thinking something like 35-31 Saints.
We're all going high point totals in the 30s.
Oh, yeah.
Bottom line,
which means it'll be 10.
Yeah, right.
That's what that means.
That's exactly right. It'll be 10-10 into overtime, guaranteed. All right, cool. Well, you heard it here first, folks. Those are our predictions. We obviously have a preview article as well on the site, so check back for that and keep checking back throughout the week for more content. We will see you here next time on the Hog Style.